hearty good morning to one and all. Myself, Purva Desai from LinkCxO. I'm honored to welcome all to LinkCxO's exclusive event where we delve into the dynamic intersection of executive leadership and the transformative power of Gen AI. LinkCxO serves a vibrant ecosystem uniting over 25,000 senior professionals, C-suite, executives, entrepreneurs, and industry experts, fostering collaboration and igniting innovative thinking. Today, we spotlight Gen AI, reshaping industries and redefining leadership. From automating inventory management to revolutionizing drug discovery, Gen AI's implications are vast. Our esteemed speakers today represent a wealth of experience and expertise, each bringing a unique perspective to the table. Let's take a moment to introduce them. First, we have Rajesh Chandiramani, CEO, Comviva, a tech Mahindra company with an impressive 33 years of experience in telecom, digital initiatives, and global sales. Rajesh has been instrumental in Tech Mahindra's exponential growth, earning accolades like the Transformation Guy and Digital Dynamo. Next up, we have Ujjyaini Mitra, founder and CEO of DeltaCube.ai, with over 16 years of leadership experience in renowned companies. Ujjyaini specializes in bridging the gap between industry and AI innovation, making her a true trailblazer in the field. Joining us is Nuzhath, Vice President of Learning and Leadership Enhancement at Axis Bank, with 23 years of expertise in organization development and learning. Nuzhath embodies principles of customer centricity and innovation, driving growth and excellence within Axis Bank. We have Sudeep Menon, CEO of an upcoming e-commerce business and ex-CEO and partner of TSS Investments, currently undermaking a Harvard Business School alumnus with a diverse background spanning American MNCs, Indian business groups, and startups. Sudeep brings invaluable insights into scaling businesses and driving transformation. And last, but certainly not the least, our esteemed moderator, Rajesh Padmanabhan, Chairman, Leaders Edge Consulting, Chief Mentor, LinkCxO. Rajesh is an accomplished corporate executive, board member, certified master coach, and startup entrepreneur. With over 3 decades of operating and consulting experience across industries such as IT services, manufacturing, hospitality, mining and metals, banking, and infrastructure. Rajesh is an influential senior business transformation leader. Each of our speakers today brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. And I'm certain that their insights will spark thought-provoking discussions and pave the way for new avenues of collaboration. So without further ado, let's dive into today's proceedings and explore the fascinating intersection of executive leadership and Gen AI. Over to you, Rajesh.
Thank you so much, Purva. Extremely, great words to the entire panel. I'm privileged to be welcoming a panel as elite as this. Can I request my fellow co-panelists to come on video and share the panel with?
Good morning.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Nuzhath. Morning, Sudeep. Morning, Ujjyaini. Morning, RC.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Purva, thank you so much, and thanks LinkCxO for hosting such a topic which has no precedence. So I guess the first disclaimer with which I'm going to start the topic is all of us bring collective experience and wisdom, and possibly we will try to build perspectives around an evolving topic. None of us claim that we would know it all. But I think that's the strength of how this panel has been built. It's a very broad-based panel so that we get different lens and different views on the topic. There are discussion threads which have been curated, and we will try and do justice to the extent that we can. And I'm sure each of the panel members are going to really, unleash their knowledge, and there's going to be a lot of learnings for each one of us. And the fellow co-panelists are going to learn also from each other. So thank you so much for being on this. It's absolutely, heartwarming and delighted to be here. So first and foremost, I think it's a world of all about AI, Gen AI, and GAN now. So I think there's lots happening in the world out there, right? And I don't claim that all of us know everything that's happening, but I think the agility with which we respond to this is important. What we're trying to discuss is not, possibly AI or Gen AI or GAN or any of this, but we're trying to build the relevance of all of this in the world of CxOs, particularly in the world of capability building. How do we look at the future of leadership, and what does it mean? I think that's the core objective of this particular discussion. If I were to build a few data points around which we can anchor this discussion. So since I do some amount of work for the government as well, I can see a lot of work that's going at the end in terms of the entire transformation. And if I were to look at purely the enterprise world for a minute, I can foresee with good amount of conviction and data that there's going to be a 20% up of deficit as far as top leadership is concerned. I'm restricting myself to top leadership at this stage. I'm not talking of capabilities stack across the entire enterprise, but the top leadership, which will really contribute to the GDP growth and our $10 trillion growth and all of that. So that's an important cutting element, and I want you to be anchored on this. So all of us will need to lift leadership up to a particular level, which can actually help us grow. And if I were to also look at a particular data point in terms of leadership aspiration to leadership building up to leadership, current capabilities, there are gaps, and there are 20% gaps in each of the three elements that I'm speaking about. So clearly the challenge lies, how are we going to traverse this journey, and how are we really going to really build? That's the aspect which we're going to really focus on. The L&D part of it, I'm glad Nuzhath is here, I think, and I'm very excited to see the title of enhancement, because I believe a lot of stuff in the L&D areas which were conventionally done are all done with or possibly dealt with through tech now. So the entire aspect of relevance, L&D architectures, future capability, and particularly business enhancement or performance enhancement are the trends of how learning and development will really reside. And I'm glad to see that enhancement is sticking out as a large part of our title. So Nuzhath, I think I'm going to piggyback on that particular area, and I'm going to go deep on a few aspects there. CxOs, if I were to look at, they clearly would want to look at, where do they go for growth? Yeah. So I think this is a hypothesis around which the entire topic actually came into being. Now, CxOs, purely from a career standpoint, if I were to look at their shelf life, CEOs, for example, the average global shelf life is just 2.8 years, so it's under 3 years. CxOs typically hover around 3 to 3.5 years at best in a role. Yeah, I'm not saying the relevance of their or the utility part of it, but a role, but per se in terms of the shelf life does not last too long. Obviously, I think CxOs of today, when they're building up or also building up with this security and insecurity of their own growth as to how they're going to look at it. But the fundamental premise on which I'm challenging this is, why should career growth be very intra-enterprise specific? Yeah. Are people not looking at careers outside the enterprise? And do we have a sweet spot where things do converge? And that was the premise on which the entire product of the exchange is fundamentally trying to be built. So more of it later. I think that's the entire stuff. And the last point that I want to leave you with is, being in the consulting world today, and I'm possibly working with a few clients, there are three stacks which are emerging as capabilities of tomorrow from a CxO standpoint. Yeah. So if I were to look at the tech part of it, Ujjyaini, I think digital and analytics are really coming out strong from a usage standpoint. I don't mean to say CxOs need to be tech geeks. No, that's not the point. But how do they leverage digital, and how do they really use the power of analytics? Yeah, from decision making, from the organization building, etc. Those two. If I were to look at the business stack, there are two things that's coming out very, very strongly, Rajesh. One is design thinking as a process, and also transformation. It's no more change management. Change management has become absolutely cliche. It's like large transformation management. Now, if I were to look at the softer part of it, Nuzhath, and Sudeep, I think the elements of emotional intelligence and also a new stuff which I'm doing a little bit of research, which is on cognitive diversity, which is the entire softer elements of leadership. I think the six capabilities are really standing out. Now, I'm summing it, I'm summarizing this. These are not the only six, but for convenience and for disruption, I'm bringing this because this is somewhat relevant to the topic of today. So I think slightly longish concept setting, but I think with this premise, let me get started. Yeah. And thanks so much once again, my co-panelists for joining here. So I think let me start with the first question. Maybe RC, if you could unmute and join me on this. Where does, and simplify this, whose responsibility is career development? And where does it reside in the?
So first of all, Rajesh, thanks for inviting me onto this panel. Very alive panel and privileged. I think I would say the responsibility, although from where I sit, is a management responsibility because you are as good as your team. But I think as I move around in the globe talking with CEOs who are my set of customers, they also see that individually people can't be not accepting and realizing that there is a big, the word you used is transformation, which is going to hit to most of us. Most of us have to change the way we are doing things. And, I come from Tech Mahindra and we have 160,000 people. And we are worried because we have been in the tech space for many years. We have been upskilling people in a certain format for many years. And now the word you use, transformational. Now, when I sit in Comviva and I'm delivering digital products or what we call intelligent platforms, the products have been there for many years, and the products also have to get what we call is AI and Gen AI enabled. Because what does Gen AI do? If we step back, it allows us to move faster. It allows us to be more cognitive about what's happening around us. I mean, previously we were using one or two data sources. Pretty much as a CEO, I was using two or three data sources to take my decision making. No more it is valid because the decision making goes into multiple data sources. And companies who are coming disruptive or greenfield across my customer base are getting disrupted because those companies are looking at multiple data fields, analyzing the data and making faster decision, and the pace is going faster. So when I look around, the decision definitely leaves it for an individual to realize that he or she is going to make a change in the way the upskilling has happened, and also from a management perspective, because we are as good as our people and team. And whether I'm building products or serving customers across the globe, it's a big factor of management taking that responsibility too.
Great, thank you, RC. I think just one follow-on, a very short follow-on question. Are CxO capabilities discussed in the boardroom? I mean, is it a topic that's in the agenda where you give a considerable amount of time, and is that something which is really right up as strategic as maybe business growth?
So, incidentally, two examples I will use. I mean, I attended the Mobile World Congress 2 weeks ago in Barcelona, yeah. And this was the maximum footfall ever happened. And, they also keep innovating on what topic would attract. 2 years back, it was Meta, but this year it was Gen AI. And the participation for people wanting to know what impact Gen AI can make was 40% more than ever, than ever. Now that gets you an impression that everyone wants to touch, feel this technology and actually adapt it, because the fear of missing out and fear of being left out and the disruption coming using companies using this technology is very high. So yes, it's a boardroom discussion, because then you look at to your people and see who is able to take me to this journey. In fact, yesterday I was with one of the CEOs dinner party at Iftar in Tunisia, and his 30% of the conversation on the dinner table was he wanting to know what he's going to do with Gen AI. Are my people ready to adopt it? Would I be left behind if my people don't know how to deal with it? And more or less, there are budgets being allocated by the board so that people, that and the use cases are still being known and discovered. But the realization that the budgets, and these are massive budgets, when I was with Orange, similar thing came out when I was in Paris, is that similar big budgets are being allocated so that company gets upskilled, people gets upskilled, and there is a knowledge and understanding on the Gen AI and AI to be able to take the business fast forward.
Thank you, RC. I think there are two, if I were to summarize the entire stuff into two words, I think transformational upskilling and leadership curiosity, with the example that you gave of the Barcelona was really sticking out. Thank you so much. Sudeep, can I ask you to step in, particularly as to how you do a lot of business transformation work? So whose responsibility do you see in the organization stack? Is it like, is it the top leadership? Is it the functional leadership? Or is it everyone's responsibility? How do you see, particularly when you're dealing with so much of transformations?
Thank you, Rajesh, and thank you for having me as a part of this esteemed panel. I think I'm going to learn as much as anybody else who's hearing. So to answer your query, I have large experience in the fashion and lifestyle space, right? And like Rajesh said earlier, there is no go but to bring in transformation and but to understand what Gen AI can bring to the table and the way that it can transform your business. So as a summary, if you're asking who is responsible, I think the initiative comes from the top. I think as long as the CEO and the CxO core team are not in sync with this whole thought process and do not see do not see a systemic change, it then becomes very difficult to bring in transformation across the organization. And today, it is not only about within the organization, but there are other issues from the consumer angle also that has to be thought of. For example, things like sustainability, things like climate change. There are multiple variables that that are being appreciated even from the consumer angle. And for all this, there is whole thought process and transformation is needed, not in the whole CxO pool. So I think while the initiative is being taken by at the CEO level, it must involve the whole CxO pool and then further transform it down to to the whole team structure through reviews, through constant conversations, through bringing in learned pool of people, discussing case studies, discussing impact, and I think it requires a set of these activities to kind of create that impact.
Thanks, Sudeep. I think two summary that I take is definitely top leadership responsibility, and I love the simple anecdote that you gave about the what and the how. The how part of the entire deliverable is becoming and sticking out more important than just the what. So thanks for that. Nuzhath, I'm going to turn to you now. The stage is set now. How does your company or how do you plan as a specialist? How do you plan career paths for senior executives? And I'm particularly excited to see that there is an enhancement title sitting in your role. So more of it. Just tell us and stitch the two parts that we've heard till now, and how does it really pan out from a career pathing standpoint for CxOs? If you could restrict to CxOs, that would be great.
Thank you. By virtue of being a facilitator, I'm going to start off with a story. The other day, I just saw this person getting into a vehicle, and instead of the vehicle going on the road, he took off in air, right? Now, this gentleman was traveling to office. We're talking about a future such as that, as opposed to going by road, which we do every day. We're talking about CxO going by air right now, right? We're talking about somebody who has gone through so much of training in, pilot riding a flight where there's so many years of investment. Without that, we're going to go in air someday. I mean, it might not happen just yet, but it's going to happen very soon. So to your question about how do we do development, first of all, we feel that it's a kind of a triangulated approach, right? The first thing is the individual driven change, because no matter how many orders come from the top, till the mindset of the CEOs or the leaders changes in that direction, no change can happen. So the first point I would say is the mindset of the people itself. Second is, of course, the top leadership driving this particular change, enhancing, catalyzing it. The third is the community itself, right? We're talking about as India or as a globe, how are we going to move and embrace this change together? So we see it in kind of a triangulated manner for the future. But for the CxOs or for the leaders specifically, in fact, we can drive it through various initiatives, and we do that currently, which is very insightful. So I will park that for now, not to get into the details. This could go on for quite a long time. But Rajesh, just to summarize, it's a triangulated way where we approach the development of any CxO that is driven by self, the management, and the community.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to go into in depth because there are 2 points which really excited me. One was leadership mindset. That can be a session on its own, but
Yes.
I'll restrict myself. And the second one is the triangulated approach, which I assume there's a structured and there's an architecture behind in terms of how you do. But more of this later, and I'll possibly pick more of this from a one-to-one conversation. And I'm sure people who are listening will want to know. Time permitting, we will at least try and if you could gather your thoughts around this, time permitting, maybe we'll get you in. And if you could give a little bit of a headline view on that, that will be nice. But we park this for now. Ujjyaini, I'm going to turn to you. And for many CxOs, who are decision makers, we all know that most of the CxOs are baby boomers, and they possibly have not they've migrated. They're tech migrants. They've not grown up with tech. But having said this, it's pretty intimidating for a lot of industries. I think people who are like very closely connected with this industry or with this function, I guess you're possibly a little more easy, but there are many industries, particularly I'm speaking from the real world, manufacturing, infrastructure. Many of them are far away from, what we're talking there. So how do you make this very non-intimidating for CxOs across the entire multi-industry stack? Yeah, and when it comes from a somebody who understands the space very very well from a digital lens, how do you think this can be done? And do you think there is any substance, there is any merit, and there is any depth of how Gen AI can really build and add value to this particular space of executive careers that we're talking about? So your views as a specialist.
Thank you so much. And, it's lovely to hearing all the other panelists speaking. And I was also learning through that. So I will, probably give you an example how things are changing in this world, and particularly with Gen AI, what are the changes happening? So earlier, as a consultant, when we would go to any CxO boardroom, the first question would be asked that, okay, do I even need it? A lot of sell was required to make them understand that they need it. Today, when we are actually reaching out, they themselves are asking these questions. Tell me, what are the AI that we need to invest in developing and making our processes better? So it has, started changing, and probably with the Gen AI push, it has started changing from a push to a pull economy altogether. So that is the first change that I see. The awareness has already built, and now they want to know, tell me, how should I do it? I have already parked a budget to do it. That is number one. Second thing, earlier CxOs used to say that, okay, go and train our junior members because they will be doing. Today, the fear has started cropping up, and it is the question of relevance of my wisdom. And the question is like, okay, while you will train the juniors, I also want, like the top MDs of the companies are saying, and these are traditional companies, okay? Like where even very traditional manufacturing companies I'm talking about, they are saying, I want to be in that room and I want to learn and upskill myself. Can you put together such, learning sessions for the senior management for us? Because they need to first understand. They need to see the art of possible. And the third part, and this is where exactly Gen AI is changing it, is the adoption of the data, the analytics, and the AI has absolutely made very agile and at the hand of mass by the help of Gen AI. So imagine earlier, we would go and create a lot of beautiful dashboard and we would struggle to ensure that people are looking at it. Today it is changing. Today we are saying, okay, the analyst will create dashboard. You don't need to know how many dashboards are at the back of it. I will put an abstraction layer of Gen AI, and now it is like Google. You ask in your own language, what you want to know from the data, the GenAI will go and fetch the information in front of you. You don't really need to go to all the dashboards. And that is where it is actually the compounding AI, which is coming at the hand of GenAI. So it has, what is compounding AI? It is not just the generative AI. Generative AI is just a abstraction layer on top of multiple other technical stuffs, which are more back end. Nobody needs to know, but you can utilize it at your own language. You don't need to be a technology specialist to be able to utilize it. And that's how GenAI has made it at the power of mass. And therefore it is a structural shift. It's no more a marginal shift. It's a structural shift that is happening at each and every industry.
Thank you, Jenny. I think you've demystified the myth and the fear of too much of tech and Gen AI. Thanks for that. I think that's very essential. I love the statement of "Do I need it?" And the push-pull, the shift from push to pull was very profound. And thanks for really bringing that part as well. But importantly, I think the openness and the adoption part of it is something that you mentioned. I want to slightly take a detour and have a three-way conversation between RCU and me, particularly on leadership capabilities, right? Yeah. So CxO capabilities. CxO capabilities, RC did allude to the point that the need is felt, but the how part of it, particularly from the CxOs, how do you think this can step in as a layer to make CxOs more effective? And RC, feel free to come in straight as the opening one. I'm sure you realize that there is a need. You also realize there's a little bit of curiosity which is taking them to people, but there's still not a very structured approach in terms of how you're building the CxO effectiveness, particularly from a tech standpoint. And I'll give you an example of what I'm doing with a client in the consulting world today. There is one company which knows very well that they're not far away from the world of technology, but their eagerness is fairly high. So one intervention that I'm doing for them is a reverse mentoring for tech agility. Yeah. So they realize that a lot of tech agility is sitting down at the bottom of the organization, some in the belly of the organization, and the leaders realize that we are not able to steer this organization because the capabilities of tech and digital is much more of the people who are down rather than us. So they've realized that while we can do a lot of business transformation, we can do a lot of showing the vision and the path, they themselves realize that we have got to learn from these young Turks. So they're doing this, and I'm actually building up that architecture. So the point that I'm again coming to is, how do we build this three-way stuff? One, there is a lot of value. We all agree, which the way Ujjyaini you're saying. RC says, yes, there is definitely value, and we all want to walk that particular journey. And I'm stitching this two stuff together with the point that I'm making. How do we make it happen? Maybe just one or two lines is also good enough, but just want to feel the journey of that change.
So I think I liked what Jenny said, is that it's moved from push to pull, which means there is a high need and a requirement acknowledged, identified. People are still clueless, because when we look at Gen AI as a common man, we look at ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is still solving easier problems. Business is a complex thing to handle, and tech companies, are trying to make them realize. And I was actually on a panel at MWC Barcelona as well with some tech CTOs. And the discussion was, who will evolve as a dominant technology player in Gen AI? Is it going to be pervasive as AI is? Because it requires a lot of investment, both in understanding data creation and processing. Because see, I think Ujjyaini also mentioned about your skill set changes. Yesterday you were doing a lot of effort. I mean, if you look at a bank, they had dedicated technology people to give dashboards to the traders. The traders can trade and make decision making. So all the trader was doing is making a decision based on all the custom dashboards, and a lot of engineering and analytics expertise were being utilized. Gen AI makes it so simple because it's already there. It's already there, and there is a cognitive way of looking at it, and you can ask and you can get. So what happens to the leaders who is now maintaining a dominance position that I know how to analyze data? I will take a decision on a stock and the stock will rise 30% or the script will go 40% up because he has this USP. He has been analyzing data by himself, but that data now becomes available by just asking a question. Should I stock invest in Reliance in next 6 months? And someone is going to do all the back work. Yeah. Now, those kind of changing of the skill sets means that a decision maker may become more of a reviewer because the data is already being analyzed by the computer, which is faster. I mean, human mind has limitations in terms of how fast we can look at data, decide, make a decision, and move forward. And that decides a successful or an unsuccessful company. But that's changing with GenAI. So coming back again, I think while humans created GenAI, it will fast track on the capability of a human mind, and that's what it's being leveraged for because compute is getting accessible and you will be making faster decisions. You'll be making more complex decisions easier because of Gen AI. And if you don't skill up, if you don't skill up, and at the board level, it is the same conversation. If we don't skill up, and your question, how do we skill up? I think there is it's a mass problem to be solved across the industry verticals, across the executives and tiered executives. I mean, it doesn't mean a CEO gets Gen AI trained by Harvard Business School or Harvard or MIT. His team becomes Gen AI enabled. It is across layered. So every team has to be having certain kind of certification, know-how, salespeople, solutioning guys, because we provide solutions to the world, right? As the industry. So I think that would be the response, Rajesh. I know it's a longer one, but it is multi-tiered. Everywhere the training would be needed, and that push to pull is already happened, which means we need to create custom modules which will skill an engineer to understand technology, will skill a manager to make decisions, and to CEO to be able to actually review and make those decisions much faster and simpler.
Extremely purposeful, RC. And I think thanks for bringing out all of this. And I'm sure the other co-panelists also feel like jumping in. But I know we're running tight on time. And I'm sure, Sudeep, if you can gather your thoughts, and Nuzhath, if you can gather your thoughts around maybe 30 seconds to respond to what RC said. I think there's a lot of stuff in there. So I'll get Ujjyaini, speaking for 30 seconds. Maybe just want to hear points of view from all of you on this particular stuff. Yeah, because it's extremely purposeful the way he articulated, and all of us are right now thinking about the how part of it. So whatever value add you want to suggest in 30 seconds, please do. Ujjyaini, over to you.
Yeah, so I would talk about 3 specific ways that we are trying to enable our clients and wherever we are going at a CxO level. First and foremost is making them realize the art of possible. So I think opening up the awareness part, that art of possible has changed, and helping them realize that is the first step. Second step, even though we say that the CxOs do not necessarily need to be hands-on, I think the days are changing fast. Today, even the top layer are actually expected to be very much hands-on. We have created and curated short master classes where the CxOs will also experiment, put their hands dirty, roll up your sleeves, make your hands dirty, experiment with GenAI, build something yourself so that you truly realize the power of it. And then you can go and, kind of guide your team what therefore can be done. The third layer, and that is something I loved what Nuzhath also said about the community. I think the peer learning and cross-border learning is very important. And when it is cross-border, as you also said, it's also reverse learning, reverse mentoring. I think it is making the organization far more flatter in terms of ideation, curation, creation, and experimentations.
Fantastic summary and great response to how RC opened it. Sudeep, 30 seconds. I know you have definite views on executive careers, particularly trends and challenges, but 30 seconds. I mean, you have to really summarize it, putting you on a spot. Sorry about this.
So for me, I think right now the story about Gen AI is how it's going to change everything, how it's a threat to a lot of jobs, and how expensive it is. I think that's one part of the story. I think for greater adoption, we have to move from this story from threat to possibilities. And there has to be an element of ROI that has to be brought in to the whole concept of Gen AI. I think it allows greater adoption, faster adoption, and more willingness to be a part of this journey.
Thank you, Sudeep. I think ROI is a topic by itself, but thanks for leaving that thought. Again, time permitting, we'll talk about it, but thanks for that. Nuzhath, can you step in? Again, 30 seconds.
Most points have been covered. So I'll just summarize that all of us are in agreement that the way to go is through self-awareness, like Ujjyaini also mentioned, is to enhance the self-awareness of individuals who are leaders. Move on to the development once people are ready, to move them to development phase where we find partners or resources, perspectives, conversations, communities, which can really, enhance this. And then keep that journey continuous, because what happens is sustainability becomes a challenge. We need to see how we can keep it sustainable. So with that, I would now, give this conversation back to you, Rajesh, for you to, of course, you're doing a great job of anchoring this and stitching all the points together.
Thank you. And you guys have been fascinating. I mean, you're just sticking to the time. Now, can I guys put you through a fast, word association round? Yeah. All of this that we spoke till now, I think, has a huge element of, possibilities of failure attached to it, right? Because we, very rapid pace, we're not sure, curiosity is high, and so risks are fairly advanced, and you're still, wanting to do all of this. So risk is fairly high, failures are fairly high. Failure management, I think, is an important capability and a competency of the leadership. I mean, I very strongly believe. Yeah. I want you guys to give me one word that comes as a response for failure management in your lens. Just one word. So I know it's difficult. Yeah, if you're not comfortable, you can even say pass and fine with that. But one word, just to gather thoughts on failure management. I mean, ideally, we would have built a perspective and discussion around it, but just want to restrict it to one word. So failure management, what's your response from a CxO lens of whatever we have spoken? Whatever comes to your mind right now.
I can start.
Yeah, Nuzhath, go ahead.
I'm okay. Fine. You want RC to go ahead? But just one word, failing fast.
Failing fast. Okay.
RC, please feel welcome to build on that.
Yeah, failing to learn.
Failing to learn. Sudeep?
Fail fast to succeed faster.
Right. Ujjyaini?
Yeah, I think failures will be part of the success.
So one word, if you were to toss back to me?
It's equal to success.
Great. Lovely. Amazing stuff. So Nuzhath, I'm going to come to you now. Yeah. And I think a lot has already got discussed, so maybe you can still shape it in a small kind of a view. CxOs always, look at internal growth options versus external options. I think let's assume this is a reality, right? You know that you're going through this particular journey, and they're looking at options all the time. There may be very few exceptions to the rule where there are like a lot of internal options, but they would want to navigate and check, what are the external options as well. Yeah. There is no common place today where, one takes a very, a practical and a judgmental view of how careers are done. So is this not a blind spot for the CHROs, the HR community? They don't even know what the CXOs are looking at from a marketplace. They're only dealing with their internal demand supply. They're only looking at what are the possibilities with it. It's still a very narrow, black box is the way I look at it. Now with Gen AI, with all that we've heard till now, there's a host of opportunities. And I'm not saying just to disrupt or displace enterprises. That's not the point. How do we broad-based thinking? How do we enhance? How do we really, take advantage of this? Again, if you can just, bring it around this particular topic of external versus internal. Is there an openness? Is there a mindset? Is there an opportunity? I don't know what. I mean, I'm throwing it as open as I feel about it.
Absolutely. I do see that you keep your promises, Rajesh. You mentioned you're going to come back with this point when I made the point about mindset in the beginning of this conversation. I think if most of us reflect from our own careers, and I would speak about leaders in general and not CxOs in particular, because many people might be playing a leadership role. And I don't usually believe that leadership is defined by just the designation that people hold, right? While CxOs are important leaders, but you also have multiple leaders. I feel the mindset and being open to learning and to in constant search of finding out how we can build perspectives, how we can search for perspectives, how we can also be ready to be challenged about our own perspectives. Because we start living in echo chambers. Each person starts believing that whatever I know is the best. But till people challenge their own thinking and say, maybe I don't know everything, and what else is there to know? That could be a good thinking that most leaders can develop. And taking a growth mindset for themselves as well, not just the organization. That is, how am I growing? How can I last in this industry for next 10 years or 20 years? How can I be relevant for the industry and contribute and continue to add value? Some of these important questions and reflections of the leaders of these questions can really take them in the right direction, is what I feel.
Yeah, I could get into my sales pitch and talk about predictive capabilities to you, but I'll hold that. Yeah, but lovely. I mean, thanks for that. I mean, you're looking at the future, so thank you so much, Sudeep. The question to you and Ujjyaini both. Yeah, I would suggest Sudeep goes first, and maybe Ujjyaini follows up. But again, keep it to a minute of narration.
Yeah.
All CxOs in today's world need to develop high tech and digital capabilities, and they need to definitely leverage from. We've heard all of this, right? Are you doing anything in this space, particularly? Both of you do work with the client space. So in the and of course, I think the attempt is not to get into any of your the client IP or data, anything like that. But something around process transformation, something around business transformation, and how do you see this? And what are some of one or two challenges that you see, and what are one or two solutions?
So the industry that I come from, it looks very glamorous from the outside, the fashion business, but inside there are there are many primitive layers that exist, right? Right from the way that manufacturing is done to the way that the whole supply chain works, and so on and so forth. First change that is needed is cultural. Many of the work that Gen AI does, I mean, it kind of substitutes for a lot of repetitive work that is done at scale, which means that there is possibility of shrinking team size, and that doesn't mean that you become a smaller manager. So there are some cultural issues like this that has to be brought upfront, spoken about it, alongside also what is therefore now the new role of the leader in terms of taking greater value decisions, right, moving up the decision chain, talking about the like I mentioned earlier, not the fear of Gen AI taking over someone's job, but the exciting possibilities that it presents in terms of self growth and what one can contribute to business. I think these conversations really help in changing the mindset, and I think that's where it starts from. And also I feel that uh, from the CEO CxO level, what I've seen, it helps to create a culture of from tech aided business to a tech led business. That shift is important. When you start moving into a tech led philosophy, I think it reflects in several aspects of how one speaks and how one runs the business. So I think these are two important starting point, that I see for bringing about some kind of transformation in this direction.
Sudeep, thank you so much. I'm going to use this. Gen AI can be cultural as well. I think that's a great point that you mentioned. And the second one, the push pull, which Jenny also alluded to a few minutes back. I think it's like putting the horse ahead of the cart. I think all of us realize that. But Jenny, any quick view on the same point, a build up to what Sudeep mentioned?
Yeah. So on top of this, we are helping our clients to design an AI academy within their organizations, which is not just going to, shift for any particular layer, but it's complete triangle, the complete top down, and ensuring that the whole organization actually embracing AI and Gen AI. And that is where there are tough discussions and questions when I consult the board or also the top level partners of big consulting firms. The questions are coming, okay, Ujjyaini, we will set it up, we will go and do the training and all these things will happen, but how do I measure the impact at the end of the day? So what are those KPI through which I will measure that whatever we are trying to achieve through this AI Academy is really happening? I think that KPIs need to be zeroed down, and it's not necessarily very easy.
I think one thing that's common, which is cutting across all four of you. I think Sudeep spoke about ROI, you spoke about impact. I think RC continuously has been talking about business relevance, and I think Nuzhath also has been talking about enhancement and effectiveness. So it's a common stick which is really which is holding all of this together. So thanks for that. But I think good value add, and overall, I think this topic is really coming to, and I'm slightly conscious of time as well. We have just maybe about 14 minutes left. I want to build a blue sky topic, RC, with you here, and I am maybe a little biased, but nevertheless, I think you can just be with me on this topic. I believe that DEI is an important strategic agenda. Yeah. And I believe that one can leverage Gen AI to really accelerate the entire practice, accelerate the entire inclusion agenda. Any quick top of the mind views? I know I'm slightly going, beyond what we've all spoken, but I think this is a very important strategic stuff. And I know you also are a great believer of the entire DNI practice. So any quick views on this, RC?
So, I'm absolutely a strong believer that we have to be DNI enabled ourselves and our mind and as an organization to accept this faster transformation, because everyone is contributing to the transformation. And I think the technology more and more is taking the barriers away as well. So we don't have to be 20 years, 30 years in the technology or in the industry to be able to be relevant, because that's what the technology has proved us. It's fast track. And that means that a lot of people who had barriers, those barriers are taken away and gives an opportunity to certainly get more focused on DNI, and we get more inclusive about when now we get a chance to actually rewrite the transformed world. And I take this thing, a big learning from Anand Mahindra every time I've met him. He talks about world is all about dreaming and then creating stories around it. And Uza talked about, when she opened, about a story. And AI is all about creating that stories about possibilities which AI can. And a lot of people don't know what the stories we are going to create with AI. Now, with that in perspective, the world is going to look different. And Nuzhath's example was absolutely, from horses to cars to aeroplanes, that's the way to get to work, maybe. Now, if that's happening, it's a chance for all of us as leaders to actually start from scratch or rewrite the way we have been building teams, and take DNI as a very critical part of building our future leadership team.
Thank you so much, RC. And I think, I'm fortunate to be chairing a group which is actually hosting this LinkCxO, Leaders Edge as a search firm, and Exotalent as an RPO firm. I think the group does great amount of work in the entire diversity and inclusion space. And some of the stuff that we've done through Gen AI is actually crawling and going much beyond databases for inclusion and bringing leaders into the client world. So amazing stuff. And when I see the points that you mentioned, I think it's reinforcing our purpose and our practice in terms of how we're going to build this further. Thank you so much for that insight. Nuzhath, the point of exec coaching and development efforts using tech. Yeah. Is it part of your entire learning architecture now? And is it something that's really right high on purpose? A quick few words of that.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier about moving from awareness to development and keeping it sustainable, the learning. We invest a lot in the area of mentoring and coaching for our leaders. And we feel that coaching is really a nuanced way to approach, because it's more one-on-one, it's personalized, the journey, and you can set your individual goals in partnership with your coach. So that's one of the ways that we look at it. And the insights that AI is throwing out, it's like really, very interesting for us to make decisions. It gives us insight into each leader's inclination, the way they are approaching the topics. What are the common topics? For example, is somebody taking resilience as the most common topic, or innovation? Or is agility more important, or adaptability? Certain interesting topics also we get to understand. I could speak a lot about it, but I will not get into details because we just have a few minutes left. But yes, we do believe a lot in the aspect of coaching and mentoring for leaders. and that is the future. And since RC, I'm calling your RC and RP as we discussed in the beginning of the call today, mentioned. I think it's also important that leaders themselves are taking the initiative. So I like the point that you made. I think I'm going to connect with you separately on that, RC. Back to you, RP.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. So, Ujjyaini, I think I want to really talk to you about the point of, if I'll possibly throw what we're trying to do. We're building a CxO exchange. We're building a CxO marketplace. It's very advanced, and Purva did open the conversation by saying 25,000 CxOs are already right up there. And we believe that we have the ability, and we've tested the prototypes and all, to guide, coach for career development for CxOs. Like, it's a real open, talent open markets kind of a stuff that we're trying to build. And it can be a B2B solution, it can be a B2C solution. So, we're trying to keep it as progressive as we think. Do you think such an idea really adds value? And I would want you to start, and maybe RC to quickly comment. Does it really, look meaningful? Is there something that you would want to give us as advice as we build this stuff? I know, you've not shared everything that we're doing, but at a headline level, does it stick with you? Is there meaning? Is there any words of advice that you would have for us?
I think without knowing much in depth, if I understand that it's a marketplace of, well technically driven and Gen AI and this kind of driven CxOs, I think, this kind of exchange probably can help a lot. Particularly, it can also help in one-on-one coaching. And but when I said that the long-term learning, the way we are setting up the AI academy in most places, is more also driven by this peer learning, community learning, and that's where we are building community. And I think this CxO exchange could actually be thought from that perspective also.
Right.
They come for certain amount of time, nurture, catalyst, and help people realize the potential, help them grow, and then probably move on to another one. It's not necessarily need to be, it's like that today cloud CFOs are there, so same way this technology CxOs also could be in the exchange place. I think once I learn it in deeply, I believe it's absolutely could be a good thing.
Thank you so much, Prema Facie, for sharing those sentiments. RC, do you think, based on whatever you've heard, to be fair, do you think there's value in this, or do you think there's disruption, or there is anxiety that will get?
No, absolutely, RP. I think, if you look at it, and I'm again reflecting that example on MWC, because I met about 100,000 executives, or I actually saw, not met all of them. And we were discussing in one of the, dinners that, look, if you look at the trend, okay, 4 years back, it was cloud. Okay, then of course, COVID slowed it down. Then it was Meta. And then it's now AI and Gen AI. And technology is moving so fast, which means that there is a need for a platform where people come and learn, get away from this fear of being missing out on those buzzwords and technology. Okay. And previously, if you were a tech, you were restricted to an IT industry or an ITES industry or whatever. But now, since tech is so pervasive into your decision making, into your business, into your disruption of business, no CxO wants to be left uninformed. And with changing technology, people say, will it be valid after 2 years? This was the question in MWC, will Gen AI be valid after 2 years? Because Meta disappeared in 2 years' time, or last year. And 2 years for a sequence, Meta was the biggest word. World is going to look different, virtual reality, everyone has to build Web 3.0, blah, 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 right? And the whole thing evolved into now Gen AI. But there is a platform which is needed so that all those confusions and decision making and talking to the like-minded people across industry and industries are getting linked. So that is a very important part. So I definitely see a huge value, RP, in terms of getting those CxOs together, having some of those questions answered, looking at what others are doing and learning.
Thank you. Very encouraging words. So just a minute of view. I think we've not been able to do justice on innovation and strategic initiatives of leadership, but just a minute of build on that. I know there's lots that you have in mind to share, but if you can summarize it in a minute.
On innovation and leadership in Gen AI?
In innovation and strategic initiatives for CxOs through Gen AI. I think that was the point. Yeah.
the whole coaching, talking, mindset within the CxO has to be in that direction. I feel even now in many of the industries that I work with, everybody wants to be a part of this industry without knowing how. And words like ROI, what's the impact going to be, what's the structural changes. So there are a lot more unanswered questions right now, and I think there needs to be much more talk and education in that direction for real strategy and innovation to start, from these realm of possibilities. So I think we need to step back a little, because they hear it from the tech industries, they know that things are changing, but what and how, a lot of questions are in that direction. So I think there needs to be much more, discussions and education and awareness in that direction, and which will then lead to, strategy and innovation in each of these industries.
Thank you, Sudeep. Thanks so much. I think just aware of time, we just maybe 3 minutes to the hour right now. I think the only way to possibly sum up this, it's impossible to sum up all that we have gathered, but maybe just a feedback and reflection from each one of you as to what's been one feedback, what has been one reflection for you from this session. I know it's my if I were to start, I would say I've made copious notes, and I think my mind has gone way ahead of me. I have no idea how to tame it right now. I'll do deeper reflection. So that's my learning. I think each of you have given me tons of stuff and wisdom. So thank you so much, Nuzhath. Your feedback and reflection in a sentence.
It's been wonderful listening to each one of the speakers. I've really enjoyed and a lot of takeaways, and it's been really anchored very beautifully by you, RP. Three things which really stand out for me is to stay connected, like Ujjyaini also agreed. Development circles or making sure that we have forums like these to discuss perspectives are really insightful. Being open-minded, because no matter how much of discussion we have, are we taking away that and really applying it in our real world? And to be led by tech. I like that. I'm not too sure who mentioned it. Was it Sudeep or RC? But as a joint wisdom, I think these three are the takeaways for me: to stay open-minded, to be led by tech, and to stay connected. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love your brevity. I mean, thanks so much for putting it together.
Of course.
Ujjyaini?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think the notes, I was just putting in the back of my heads are amazing, and listening to each one of you are, it's already enhances the thought processes. So thank you so much for that. I think, I would love to take back all these things and, do more homework that, okay, how can we encourage, more industries to come and really think forward through this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sudeep?
Thank you for calling such an esteemed panel from multi-industry and multi-function. I think that kind of allows us to, in just 1 hour, understand perspectives from various industries and various. Much I have taken in that space. I need to go back and kind of filter it, and really put it to use. But thank you for anchoring such a panel.
Thank you, Sudeep. RC, quick words from Tunisia.
So I'll tell you, RP. First of all, you and Apurva compliment you for getting such a diverse panel. It's a very complex topic, and you've got, all aspects. In fact, you try to cover all aspects, which will be touched upon with such a big word called Jenny, okay, or a small word with a big. And some of the topics which we discussed, right to the bottom of understanding what will it take to scale up people, businesses, and also the platform. I think I would like to compliment, because there's so much, and I have the luxury of traveling across the globe and talking to some of the CxOs. There is so much of unknown with the Gen AI, with so much of known because of what ChatGPT has been creating, and the art of possibility of how the business could look in the future. And that combination makes it all the more complex. But thanks for getting all the elite panelists. Loved the conversation. I loved everyone's thinking, very disruptive and very deep, and a lot to take away. Absolutely, a lot to take away.
Thank you, RC. And for me, I mean, if I were to just put words around, absolutely privileged to be anchoring a panel as diverse and rich as this. My feedback is vulnerability. I'm possibly feeling more vulnerable. And my reflection is agility. So how I'm going to respond to it is the reflection. So with that, thank you. And we're exactly at 11:30. Thanks so much for being on this panel. Let me hand it over to Purva for, closing out the session. And I'm sure we've not taken any questions because we wouldn't have had time, but I'm sure there'll be lots of stuff that will come through. We can stay connected and we can build on it. Purva, over to you.
Thank you. The kind of, there are no words actually, how to express how thankful and the kind of gratitude we have right now after listening to every one of you. It's like it was so enriching. It was so filling. This is going to stay with me forever, and I think most of the audience, that Gen AI is small words but with big impact. It is actually going to stay. And there were so many things to learn. I would advise everyone in the audience and everyone who is going to see out over there to watch this video again and again and again, to actually capture the essence of everyone, what all the data that has been shared over here, because it was so much in such a small time. It was a small pack of a power pack. Everybody would have to watch it again and again to understand, pick everything and put to use, as Sudeep rightly said, to take it, filter it, and put it to use. That needs to be done with this entire session. It was so fulfilling. It was so fruitful. Deep gratitude to Rajesh. I have a next level admiration for you when it comes to the way you have handled everything and the way you were able to anchor the entire session. I don't think so anybody else could have done better than you. Seriously. Thank you, Nuzhath. Thank you so much, Ujjyaini. Thank you, RC. Thank you, Sudeep. Thank you, everyone. And heartfelt gratitude to all the audience, all the attendees over here who have witnessed the entire session. And there had been a few questions actually over here, but as we are a little short on time, we will take in all the questions. I invite everyone to share their questions with us. We will make sure that we answer each and every question. We will send it down to the respective person, and we will make sure that we collect the entire answer, compile it, and share it with the respect. And with that, I think we can conclude the entire event. We have already crossed the limit.
Thank you. Cheers. Happy weekend and lovely.
Thank
Let's
you.
stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Purva.
Bye-bye.
Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Purva.
Bye.